Attack on Titan is a story which consists of 139 amazing chapters written by Hajime Isayama. Each one has something to offer, yet some are bound to stick out more than others. For many, their favorite chapters are the climaxes of the story, where plot threads finally come together in a grand culmination of everything before it, like declaration of war or memories of the future. It might be one with action like Promise, or the conclusion of the story with the final chapter. Isayama's favorites, however, might seem inconsequential to the larger narrative, yet something about them makes them. Isayama's favorites, however, might seem inconsequential to the larger narrative, yet something about them made him rank them higher than the others. Both Friends and Bystander are similar because the majority of these chapters take place in a flashback. While there's some framing around the beginning and end of the chapters to explain it, the events have little to no plot or lore influence on the story. They take place between the uprising and return to Shiganshina, a time of introspection and peace between two action-packed arcs. While they have little direct influence on the plot, the themes in these chapters resonate throughout the series and through many of the characters. Friends starts with a flashback of Kenny Ackerman's life before he dies. In the beginning, he meets with the king Uri Rice and attacks him without thinking. He knows that the Ackermans should be fighting against the rulers, but he can't remember why. In the underground world he was raised in, he became violent just in order to survive. But Uri's able to transform into a titan and grab hold of him. Instead of crushing Kenny in his fist, he lets himself almost get killed by his knife before letting him free. In this action, he's able to de-escalate the violence, though he puts his own life at risk when he has the option to kill Kenny. In Attack on Titan, violence is systemic and ingrained into the minds of cultures. People fight and discriminate against entire races of people for the actions of a few, which prompts retaliation and subsequent violence in a never-ending cycle. The ending of the series seemed to hammer that in, since Eren's rumbling against the rest of the world prompted the retaliation that destroyed Paradis later. It's easy to say that the message here is that violence is inescapable. However, this chapter provides an alternative. To end the cycle of violence, Uri had to let himself get hurt first to save both of their lives. It made no sense to anyone else how the man with more power almost let himself be killed by his attacker. It confuses Kenny as well, who has only seen power used to put other people down. Kenny spends his whole life chasing after Uri and what he saw, eventually stealing the Titan serum from Rod Rice. As we see Kenny in the future, he lays dying in front of Levi, ready to give him the serum. But before he can give it to him, he tells him what he's learned, that everyone is a slave to something. He spent most of his life failing to understand Uri, and doesn't want Levi to throw away his life in the same way. These words stick with Levi, who remembers them when it's time to decide whether to give the serum to Armin or Erwin. Erwin has always been a slave to his mission to take back the walls and see the basement. Armin, meanwhile, only wants to discover the outside world, pursuing it earnestly for no reason other than genuine curiosity and wonder. The more practical choice was Erwin, but Levi had learned that Eren was miserable as a slave to his mission, and bringing him back would only make him suffer more. Survey Corps members like Flock would come to hate them for this decision, seeing Erwin's determination as the heart of the Survey Corps. But while Levi understands the purpose of Erwin's status, he also knows from Kenny that prolonging his life just to remain a slave to the same dream would be torturing him. We see Kenny's death and Historia's coronation, before seeing the main cast walking with Historia, telling her to hit Levi and ask him what he'll do about it. She punches him hard and tries to get a reaction out of him. But instead of violence, he surprises his friends by showing kindness, tying the chapter all together. Attack on Titan constantly covers the many different aspects of war and conflict, and how propaganda and closed-mindedness lead to an infinite cycle of violence. But this chapter responds to that by saying that while war is inevitable, we each individually can see past the short-sighted violence and find kindness in others rather than conflict. Bystander begins with Aaron and the main cast meeting with Keith Shadis to find out the secret behind one of the memories that he saw from Grisha. When they meet him, Aaron asks Shadis to tell him about his father, to which he replies that the story will be of no use, yet he continues. He met Grisha outside the walls. He was completely lost and had amnesia. He tells Grisha about the world and what life is like inside the walls, to which he responds that there's peace and happiness there. But Shadis is one of the few characters who've had a taste outside the wall, and he knows that most people are unaware of the immense possibility of what could be outside. But then he tells Grisha that he only sees himself as a tool, used by the government to silence the concerns of the people. But Grisha sees everything differently. He tells Shadis that he's the most brave person inside the walls, that he's the embodiment of the free spirit of the Survey Corps. Shadis has always had an inferiority complex, brought on by the perception of the Survey Corps. Those inside the walls don't understand the value of his contributions and criticize him harshly for each waste of human life and resources. He can only endure this because of the idea that he can prove them wrong and that he won't be laughed at again. But Grisha's the only person to give him hope that what he's been doing is remarkable and brave. This is enough to give him the strength to continue to dedicate himself to the Survey Corps, despite the lack of appreciation he usually gets. But over time, Shadis comes to envy Grisha, while Keith remains stagnant and endures all the hardship of his role to no reward. Grisha receives acclaim for his work as a doctor and falls in love with Carla. Shadis has believed that when he finally earns the respect he deserves, that Carla will take notice of him, yet Grisha is the one who marries her. Shadis is heartbroken and feels hurt not just by Grisha, but by Carla for never recognizing his true worth. When Shadis returns from an expedition, he's criticized by everyone, not only for his consistent failure to make any progress or save any lives, but also because the younger heroine has outclassed him in efficiency and intelligence. But worst of all, he sees Aaron for the first time, the human reminder of his failure and unrequited love. He snaps at Carla, telling her that accomplishments of special people can't be comprehended by ordinary people who don't accomplish anything, especially not her. But he knows deep down that he's not one of those special people. The special ones have left him in the dust, and when the wall collapses, he's just one in the mass of bodies running away. He and Grisha look for his family when they find Aaron. Shadis has been hoping to apologize to Carla, which makes it hurt more when he's told that she was killed. Grisha has seen the future and knows to feed himself to Aaron, but Shadis asks why he, as a special person, can't take revenge himself. Grisha, who's been manipulated, tells him that his child is not like him, and to not get involved. He wasn't speaking from the heart here, since future Aaron had manipulated him into doing this. But Shadis took it to heart, finally cementing in his heart that he was no use to anyone around him. So instead of trying to help Aaron, he brought him back to the bed and ran away again. Hanji's dismissive of this story, saying that he ran away here because of an inferiority complex, rather than as punishment for the people that died working for him, like he claims. But Aaron acknowledges that the only thing that made him special was his Titan powers. Shadis then tells him Carla's words, that he didn't need to be more special than anyone. He was great just because he was born into this world. This phrase became Aaron's motto, to remind himself that he has things to strive for simply because he was born. Yet he misunderstands his mother's words here. He never needed to be anything special for her. She didn't want him to fight to avenge her, yet he did all the same. Shadis once again is a bystander, watching Aaron's journey from a distance, but never believing himself capable of changing anything. This chapter alone paints a depressing tale of Shadis' life, how he lived in inferiority and shame, while never getting the recognition he hoped for, from Grisha, or Carla, or anyone. But this isn't the end for his character. When the Survey Corps recruits are under attack by Titans, he's the one to save them and lead them into battle. And when he and Theo McGarth are trapped in a ship with Jaegerists, he blows up the ship to take all of them out. He does this without hoping for recognition or respect, The Alliance don't even know he's there. He does it for the greater good and no other reason, finally getting rid of his need for approval. In a story full of bloodlines and inherited powers, Shadis is a reminder that everyone has it in them to do good, even when he's told himself that he's not special enough to change anything. It's also a reminder that being born into this world is enough to make someone special. There's no need to tie a person's value to their superiority to others, since love has nothing to do with status and respect. These two chapters come at an important time in the story, with Friends actually coming at the exact halfway mark of the series. Amidst the chaos and action of the story, these are deeply human chapters that deal with heroism and the cycle of violence, two major themes of the story, in small ways that serve as the microcosm for the story at large. Despite the ending of the story, which was pessimistic in some ways about human nature, these chapters are reminders that we have it in all of us to overcome the worst parts of ourselves, to see past violence in favor of kindness, and to overcome our fears and insecurities for the greater good.